Okay, today's video we're going to talk about the best PMAX campaign structure that there is, that you can use on your campaigns. The whole secret to this is that the asset groups that you can do multiple of inside of any PMAX campaign that you're running isn't the best way to go about getting the most results with PMAX, which is going to be contrary to just about everything you're going to hear taught or pushed about PMAX campaigns. Why should you listen to me? Well, I run hundreds of PMAX campaigns, tried this and that with PMAX. What I'm sharing with you here today is simply what I learned about running PMAX, so you don't have to go through the same stuff that I have running PMAX campaigns and figuring out what's the best way to get money, essentially, and profit out of a PMAX campaign for a business, regardless if you're doing e-commerce, non-e-commerce, whatever. I run an ad agency where we manage dozens of PMAX campaigns at any given time, and just know what general rules apply. So this is information that's worth millions of dollars, literally speaking, because we spend millions of dollars running ads for businesses that we manage, and all I do is just ad strategy all day long at our advertising firm. So with that said, I'm going to go through what you're just starting out here, what your three main options are with any PMAX campaign, or if you're going to run PMAX for your business, which you certainly should do for any e-commerce business, not non-e-commerce or where you're selling services, or when you're basically trying to generate leads. And I'm going to explain as to why that is specifically, where it's great for selling products. It's actually the best thing you can do, basically speaking, for selling products 90+% of the time, and the complete opposite for when you're trying to generate leads. When I say leads, we're talking about services usually, but that even also applies to products that are more expensive, and you got to actually generate leads for them. PMAX is just garbage at generating leads, to keep it simple. I'll go through why that is as well on this particular video, and then of course what's the best way to set up a PMAX campaign to extract the maximum profit you can out of PMAX for your business. But going back to the first issue at hand, when you're trying to decide how to set that PMAX up in terms of the structure, there's three main options you have, okay? Number one is you can have multiple PMAX campaigns. You don't have to have just one PMAX. You can set up a series of PMAX campaigns to target the same amount of items, or, you know, if you're uneducated enough to know, that you're trying to run PMAX for services or lead generation, which is a much better way to run ads for lead generation, which is individual search campaigns or display campaigns. You could also run one PMAX campaign, but then also run multiple asset groups, which, like I mentioned in the title, running multiple asset groups isn't the best way to run and get the most out of PMAX for your business. Of course, your third option always is, through process of elimination here, you could run one PMAX campaign. Sorry, I got this mixed up here. You could run one PMAX campaign with multiple asset groups, and you could run one PMAX campaign with one asset group. So if you're not going to run multiple PMAX campaigns, you could run one PMAX and do either one asset group that covers everything you want to cover with PMAX, or you could run multiple asset groups within that one campaign. So those are your three options, 1, 2, 3. With that, it is, generally speaking, of course, multiple asset groups. 99% of the time we don't do that at all. And then depending on the situation, what company, what we're promoting, it'll either be 1 or 2, which is multiple PMAX campaigns or one PMAX with one asset group. And the better long-term results is generally going to come from number 1. And long-term being the key word here, because the one problem with spreading stuff out over multiple campaigns is it takes each campaign longer to acquire the minimum amount of data required for the machine learning that Google has to get you the kind of results that you want, because ultimately they're figuring out where it should show up, where it shouldn't. And even if it comes down to showing for one particular search phrase on Google. Google looks at the people searching for that search phrase and decides if your ad should show up for males versus females or whatever when they search for that phrase, and ultimately to get you better results on an ongoing basis, assuming you have conversion tracking set up. But long term, you can, because of the extra granularity you have running campaigns with running multiple PMAX campaigns, you'll actually get better results that way. Why is that? Because you could actually take the items that don't do quite as well, if you're talking about selling products here, which is the main reason, as I mentioned, that you should run PMAX. You could take the bottom 20% of items that produce below average results in terms of ROI/ROAS on PMAX and isolate them out into an individual campaign. So with that, I'll always start out with one campaign. But as soon as you kind of find out which items are selling above average and then below average, you do yourself a solid long term by taking the ones that are producing below average, single them out. Now obviously you would need a certain minimum amount of data to know that this isn't by chance certain items are doing below or above average. But what we find is if you're really trying to scale a PMAX campaign and you have all the items within one campaign, then Google's going to constantly try to push the items that aren't producing as well so that it can eventually try to get those campaigns to work, okay? Which is great and everything, but what it does is it slows the result scaling, the scaling of the items that are doing above average, because ultimately that PMAX campaign, you set a target ROAS, if you will, or should. Then with that target ROAS, it's only going to be able to scale so much, so quick, because certain items on there just aren't able to do very well, and it's going to keep testing those items that don't do very well, which makes it basically holds back the items that do above average, okay? So if you take out the items once it's clear which items aren't going to do above average, and you put that into its own campaign, and then you set a lower ROAS target for those straggling items, and then a higher ROAS target for the items that normally do well in terms of ROAS, then the items that do well will scale faster. And the items that don't do very well, you could just, of course, get rid of those if you really wanted to short-term really rise what you're making out of your Google Ads account. But you know, with the machine learning that Google does, eventually maybe they'll figure out a way to run these profitably. So you could, and then with that, if you set the target ROAS on those items real high, they would not get any traction. But what I like to do is take the, you know, those 20% of items that are producing below average results, put it into its own PMAX campaign, set a lower ROAS target so that it'll still actually get some impressions, but then set the daily budget on that campaign that targets the lower, below average result products, you know, to where it's only spending 5% of our overall daily ad budget that we're investing on Google Ads, so that we're investing what we can afford to lose on those losing items, if you will, so that the overall investment into Google Ads isn't dragged down too much, but we're investing in the future and eventually can figure out, the algorithm will figure out how to run those items. So at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're basically putting better controls on the systems that Google has. And you know, stuff that isn't working, we're saying to Google, hey, basically, limit what you're investing to try to figure out how to get these items to work to a certain percentage of our spend so that the overall ROI that we have in our account is good and reliable, but not totally nothing, so that we can eventually figure out how to make these items work. And consistently, we're willing to invest this percentage of our budget into getting these items to work, but not above that. That's the perfect level of control, but not short-sightedness that will get you the most profit out of your ad account over time, but without short-term dragging down your ROI too much, and more importantly, so that the items that are doing well aren't going to be hindered by the items that are not doing very well. So that's going to be the primary best way to run PMAX specifically. And with that, the reason why we use one asset group in our PMAX campaigns is because going into the second main point I wanted to make here was asset groups do very little in terms of targeting. You could go in there and say you want to do male versus female, this income versus that income. Even we tested targeting custom lists of competitors, certain Google searches. It doesn't really change that much. You could go in and test it for yourself. Go ahead in the asset groups under the signals. Go ahead and tell Google you want to target just male, and then go ahead and search as a male, assuming you're a male, for yourself, and you'll see the ads propagating. Signals are not targeting options, and they're not even strong suggestions, because it still shows up for males whether you say you want only females or not, for the most part. So, and it's to the point where it does so little to narrow the actual targeting of your campaign. Even if you know males don't buy and you're just selling female shoes, it's to the point that it's pretty much pointless to set up those audience signals. And then with that, if you're not going to set up different audience signals, then what's the point of these different asset groups? There is none. Yes, you could say, well, in your previous example, where you suggested the items that are, like the worst 20% of items that are producing below average results in terms of ROAS, putting that into a separate PMAX campaign, wouldn't it make sense, instead of a new PMAX campaign, putting that in a new asset group within the same PMAX campaign you got? And the reason you won't, that's not the most ideal way to go long term, is because you can't set a different target ROAS for certain items if all it is just in a different asset group. You'll have way more control doing a separate campaign, so that, like I said before, you could set a lower target ROAS for the items that are struggling to try to get some learning and eventually get those going a little bit better, and then a whole different target ROAS for the ones that are doing above average results. You ultimately get your products to scale much faster overall that way than doing just two different asset groups. A lot more, like double more. So therefore, you don't want to use multiple asset groups. It doesn't really serve a purpose, even though hypothetically speaking, Google says it does. The asset groups are a great idea if you're talking about running PMAX and wanted to show up outside of shopping and to show up on Google search and so on and so forth, because you could actually group the different asset groups and just have, like, if you sold home furniture, you could put all your couches into one asset group and all your kitchen tables in another asset group. But even then, it doesn't make sense. Why? Because you don't want to run search ads through PMAX. You want to run a search campaign for search ads. PMAX is for shopping. PMAX runs better shopping ads than regular shopping. We know this because we've done lots and lots and lots of testing on this. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't run shopping ads or search ads better than a search campaign does. It also doesn't run display campaigns better than a dedicated display campaign does. And same thing with YouTube, same thing with discovery. Why is this? Because you don't have as many levers and controls to control the campaigns. It's hard enough making money as is with a display campaign. To add the hindrance to your ability to set up and get an ROI that's respectable on display, than to have no levers and controls to filter out your ads so that your ads only show up for the exact people you want. If you know your products are not bought, by, or services, if you're even going there, by poor people that are not in the top 10% of income demographic, and you know because of what I told you before that if under the audience signals you try to say that you want the top 10% of income demographic, and then ultimately it doesn't really even, it just like ignores it, then your display campaign's never going to make money. You have to have an actual display campaign to really limit the ads to the top 10% of income demographic. And on the search campaign side, it's even worse, because there are certain keywords you want your ads to show up for that are profitable, and there's ones that aren't. And of course, through PMAX, the algorithm could try all these different searches, and eventually, with the tracking that you have, figure out where it should actually show up and where not. But do you really want to piss away tens, if not hundreds, if not millions of dollars before the algorithm, through process of elimination and brute trial and error to figure out what works, or do you want to figure out the logical things that make sense? Start super conservative, make your ads work and at least break even in the first 90 days, and then slowly branch out from there until your ads can't scale anymore. That's the way I do things, and that's the proper way to do things if you don't want to waste tons of money. So you could be as lazy as you want. You could say, Google, take all my money and eventually find me results. You're going to piss tons of money away. Yes, it's not going to take you much effort, but it's also going to waste so much money to the point where most people can't afford to do it that way, because you'll run out of money before you ever get to even break even. So PMAX is a terrible way to run anything else besides shopping, because it takes too much money to get to the end result that you want, because it doesn't have any real levers to pull. And search ads are hard to get to work. With PMAX, it sometimes I've seen can work, where it can make money if you're in a non-competitive space with high demand. In terms of like display campaigns, YouTube, forget about it. Those campaigns need to be narrowed down so much to get them to work that PMAX is just never going to work on those campaigns. So effectively, don't even try it. Just don't try it, okay? To keep it simple. Because with like display, ultimately what gets those to work is to find an audience that at least 1% or greater of who you're targeting is a slam dunk person who would see what you have and would want it right away if they just knew it existed. And you only get that by, for instance, targeting all the people that are currently doing research on your leading competitors, for instance. And you got to be that super specific about your targeting, or it just isn't going to work. Well, you're never going to get that. Dream on if that's what you're expecting to get with PMAX, even if you uploaded that audience to the audience signals and expected Google to just target those people, or at least try it, because they don't try anything, it doesn't seem, in terms of the audience signal information you give it. So in terms of the campaign structure, that's the basic information you need to know. Now, some other things to quickly mention is, like I mentioned before, never use lead generation or PMAX for lead generation campaigns. Why? Because the campaign is through how I explained before. It's going to try this, and it's going to try that, and eventually try to get you the results. It'll generate a bunch of leads. It'll be mainly leads from like the Google Display Network, because it's a bunch of inventory, if you will, that nobody wants. So they're going to hawk it out, to you through that PMAX campaign you're running, because the idea is that you don't know any better, and most people won't, and then most people will spend all that money on stuff the placements that nobody wants. And through Display Network, because there's so much click fraud out there nowadays, Google's algorithm is going to say, oh, there's lots of leads coming in. You have a very good lead cost, whereas all the leads are just 100% bogus. And then your campaign is just going to go totally off the rails. And that's the default there. I mean, technically, you could go ahead and use something called offline conversion tracking that I strongly advocate for on this channel all the time. If you're going to run any kind of lead generation campaigns, especially on Display Network or YouTube, so when a lead comes in, and once you have verified it's a good quality lead, it's qualified and like estimated the deal value, you can import that back into Google Ads and only count a conversion if that lead is not just, a call happened, but that call was verified as qualified, and then use that to steer your campaigns. Even if you do that through PMAX, it's still going to be tricky to get PMAX to get that to work, even though it's got real data to do process elimination testing through brute force testing and eventually finding you the customers you want. Again, it's going to take so long, you're going to probably run out of money before it ever works. So don't do lead generation through PMAX. Do it through a standalone campaign by itself. PMAX is supposed to be all 5 campaign types in one: display, discovery, YouTube, and search and shopping. You don't, and it sure is simple, but it'll sure simply drain your wallet in a damn hurry while it's at it. Anyway, there's that. And then also, one other thing to mention here is feed-only setup. So if you take my advice, just use PMAX to do shopping placements better than shopping could by itself. The best way to do that is to run a feed-only setup. You can go ahead and watch my video about feed-only PMAX campaigns. Go to my channel homepage, search for feed-only on this channel homepage, and find a whole dedicated video regarding that. But in short, what this is under the ads menu in your PMAX campaign, you don't put you put the bare minimum information in there that's possible. You can actually save your ad even if there's no headlines, no descriptions, none of that. What that effectively does is it makes you not show up for anything outside of shopping placements because there's no material for it to use to show up there. Technically on YouTube they'll say they'll make you a video, but for all practical purposes they won't really do that. And the most important thing is you won't show up on search, you won't show up on display for the most part, and that takes care of most of it, if you will. So feed-only setups, they work great. PMAX with feed-only crushes regular shopping. For anything else, it stinks. Take my word for it, it stinks. And if you are doing good with PMAX, because like I said, it's not impossible to do good with PMAX, it can be profitable. You'll be even more profitable running standalone search campaign for yourself instead of using search through a PMAX campaign. So just know you can make even more money. And but for the most part, if you're running PMAX for like lead generation, you're doing like a local service even. If you're actually getting that to be profitable, you've got something that there's high demand and low competition. Such as we had somebody who did motorized shade services where they installed motorized shades. Well, there's only there's very few contractors in the area that did that, and it's easy to make money in that space because the average job is several $1,000s, and there's fairly high demand for that type of thing. So in comparison to the demand, it's not a huge amount of demand, but compared to the demand there is, very low amount of people doing it, very low competition. Therefore, a PMAX campaign, as shitty as it is to run for that type of thing, still would make money. But switching to a search campaign, now you're making 3 times, 4 or 5 times as much as you were even able to make with that PMAX campaign, primarily because you don't have all the display and all this other crap you're showing up for. Yes, that's number one, a big number one, but 2, you can have, if somebody's typing in specific terms, you can have specific ads and specific landing pages that you decide up front. That is, if they type in motorized shade company near me, you can have an ad that says motorized shade company near you. Super laser targeted to what they're searching for, which is done through a structure called single keyword ad groups that I use on every campaign we run because it works 3 times better at least than few keywords and 1 ad for all of them. Even better, it works even better still than dynamic keyword insertion, in case you were saying, but I do dynamic keyword insertion. And sending them to a page that doesn't say motorized shade service, it says motorized shade company in the name of their city, because they're looking for near you, if you will, to get the general idea. And you're going to make get the real money. If you're going to go through all the trouble of doing what you're doing in your business to deliver that service, why settle for just a little bit of the results when the easiest thing to optimize in your business is the Google Ads campaign? Yes, it takes time. If you're busting your ass out there managing people to do the work, way easier just to spend that time on the Google Ads campaign than it is to optimize the operational side. Promise you. So anyway, with that said, that's the best PMAX campaign structure that you can run, and I've tested them all. So if you have any questions about anything I covered today, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person that leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days. You can ask me any ad-related question you'd like. I'm more than happy to answer it, as I love giving back to the people who watch my channel, as it obviously helps us grow. If you are looking for a way to make millions of dollars with ads, running ads for your business online, this is the best channel. I promise you can find out on the topic, as it's coming from somebody who manages dozens of ad accounts on an ongoing basis and just does strategy for clients all day long. And this is all I do. I'm not a full-time YouTuber or course seller, which is mostly what you find on YouTube as well as online, if you will. And so you're getting information straight from the source. So you should subscribe to this channel. And with that, I also have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog, where you can find my written work there, in addition to what you find on this channel, as well as I have a column over at entrepreneur.com. You can follow my work there, which if you like the channel, you'll love my written work even more, I promise you. Beyond that, though, If you are looking for an ad manager to help you get results, this is exactly what I do, and we guarantee everything we do. That is, until you get increased sales and profits from your campaigns, more than what we would even take as far as a fee, there is no fee to work with our agency. The only catch is you got to have something we know we can really get great results with up front. And with that, if you want to see if we can actually work for you to deliver sales results up front on guarantee, you simply just have to reach out and we'll give you a free analysis, let you know what we could get for you up front. It's guaranteeppc.com to reach out and get the free analysis. As a side, if you are looking to get great results, don't want to hire an ad agency or manager, want to manage your own campaigns, we also do sell templates. If we worked in your market before, which we've worked in 100 plus markets in the last 10 years, you can use the ad templates that work for your market. The ads, the landing pages, the campaigns, all of it, and copy and paste the results we got in your market already to your ad account and skip all the BS that we had to go through to figure out what gets great results in your market. As long as you're in a different geographic territory as our client or different country or whatnot, you can use the exact same thing that we're using to get amazing results in your space just for a one-time fee to get access to the templates we have. These templates are so good, you could start up another business like that. You know, if you're in a different country, want to start up an e-commerce business, you could start with an e-commerce campaign template that works to sell a product. And if you're not in the same geographic territory as our client that we have, a client now, such as you want to sell printer toner, well, we got a template that works perfect for that. And if you're in a country that our client isn't in, well, you can just use it to sell it in your country and get great results with that template right up front without any of the work we had to figure out how to get that to work precisely well in your market. Or you could do that to start up a lead generation business. If you're doing local lead generation, sell the leads using an already proven polished campaign that we've polished up over the years for a certain market. Or you could, of course, just use it to bypass all the learnings we had to go through to get the results we have in your exact market. So anyway, if you're interested in that, reach out to me also at guaranteeppc.com. With that, I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, it was useful for you, and I hope to see you in my next video where we have another great strategy for you then. See you later.